Welcome to Listen to Learn, a podcast by the Consistent 24. In each episode, we explore best-selling books to help you listen, learn, and start earning. Turn your talents into profits and start your journey today.
Okay, so have you ever just stopped to think about how much of your day is just like on autopilot?
Total.
Like I'll make coffee in the morning or walk the dog, check my emails, and it's like I'm barely even thinking about it.
It's wild, right?
It's like we're just running on these pre-programmed loops.
Yeah, totally.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into the science behind those loops, those habits, with The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Yeah, this book is fascinating. It really digs into how much power these unconscious routines we have over our lives, you know?
Okay, so speaking of like the heart of this whole thing, Duhigg talks about this habit loop.
Right, yeah, the habit loop.
So what exactly is that?
So basically, it's like this three-part cycle.
Yeah.
Think like cue, routine, reward. Something happens that triggers this behavior. The behavior happens, and then there's a payoff, you know, something that tells your brain, do that again.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm wondering, where do things like memory and like conscious decision-making fit into this loop?
Yeah, so that is where things get super interesting.
Okay.
Because for a long time, scientists, they thought habits, they relied on like conscious memory.
Right, like you have to remember doing it to like make it automatic.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
then they studied this guy, Eugene Pauly, and Eugene had some pretty severe memory loss
Oh, wow.
from encephalitis. And he couldn't remember what he did 5 minutes ago.
Wow, that's got to be incredibly difficult.
It was.
Yeah.
But here's the fascinating part.
Okay.
Even though Eugene, he couldn't form new memories, like at all, he
Yeah.
could still learn new habits.
What?
Yeah. Like his wife would take him on the same walk every day. And eventually he could do it himself.
No.
Even though he like didn't consciously remember the route or anything.
So even with like his memory so impaired, his brain was still forming those pathways.
Exactly. And this is where the basal ganglia comes in.
The what?
The basal ganglia.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's this ancient part of the brain. And it turns out it's like crucial for habit formation, even without conscious memory.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the basal ganglia. This is like the habit center.
Yeah, you got it.
It's like running these programs in the background, whether we're aware of them or not.
Totally. And that's actually, you know, that's why breaking a bad habit, it can feel so impossible sometimes. It's not just about willpower at that point. It's about like rewiring these deep-seated neural pathways.
Right, because it's not like you just decide not to do it and then your brain's like, okay, cool, we'll just delete that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if we understand this loop, the cue, the routine, the reward, is that the key to changing our behavior?
I think so, yeah. Like if you want to finally stick to that morning workout routine.
Yes. Please tell me the secret.
Well, it's not always easy. And one of the things that makes it so hard is that, well, companies have been using this against us for years.
Wait, what do you mean companies are using this against us?
Well, think about it. Like, how many times have you walked into, like, Target just to grab, like, I don't know, one thing,
Oh my gosh.
and then you walk out with, like, a cart full of stuff
Yeah.
that you, like, didn't even realize you needed. Literally every time I go to Target, it's a problem. Yeah, and it's, like, it's not an accident. Like, companies are so good at figuring out those habit loops
Right.
and using them to their advantage.
Okay.
Like, ever wonder how Pepsodent, you know,
Toothpaste?
yeah, how it got to be so popular?
I mean, I don't know. I've never really thought about it.
So, like, back in the early 1900s, like, most people, they, like, barely even brushed their teeth.
Really?
Like, it wasn't a thing.
I brush my teeth like twice a day at least.
Right, exactly. But back then, it wasn't, like, a thing.
Okay.
And so this ad man named Claude Hopkins comes along.
Okay.
And he figures out that if he can make people crave clean teeth, he can sell a lot of toothpaste.
Okay, so how do you make someone crave something that they don't even think about?
Right. That's
Right.
the thing. He needed a cue, like we talked about.
Right.
Something that people would notice.
Mhm.
And he found it in something that, like, we all have. It's tooth film.
Oh.
You know, like when you, like, run your tongue over your teeth and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
feel kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, I actually hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of gross.
Yes.
And Hopkins used that. So his ads, they told people to, like, feel for that film,
Oh, no.
making them all, like, self-conscious about it.
Oh, gosh.
And then the reward, well, beautiful pearly white teeth, of course.
Yeah.
And so he plastered these images of, like, dazzling smiles everywhere, promising that Pepsodent was like the key.
Oh, so he's like, tooth film equals bad, Pepsodent equals good.
Exactly.
And it's like this basic desire we all have for a nice smile.
Yeah, and like it's crazy. It worked brilliantly. Like people
Right.
started craving that feeling of smooth, clean teeth, and Pepsodent was the answer.
Wow.
And it's a classic example of how understanding those cravings, it can actually drive behavior. Like it's not just about the product itself,
Right.
it's about like the feeling
Yeah.
that you associate with it.
Okay, that's kind of scary, actually. Like, I can see how that applies to toothpaste, but are there other things like that? Like, it's not like I'm out there craving, like, air freshener.
Well, you kind of are.
Really?
And Febreze figured that out.
What?
Yeah, so remember how we talked about how the brain seeks a reward?
Right.
Well, initially, like Febreze marketed themselves as like eliminating bad smells, right?
Bullshit, yeah.
But it turns out people, they didn't even realize how much they were like ignoring those smells.
That's true. You get used to the way your house smells.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're just kind of nose blind after a while.
Totally. So they had to like rethink the reward.
Okay.
They needed to create a craving for something.
Okay.
And what they landed on was the feeling of freshness, like that satisfaction you get after you've cleaned.
So it's not even about the bad smell.
Not really.
It's about the good feeling you get after you've, like, cleaned it up.
Exactly. So by like spraying Febreze after you clean, you start to associate that fresh scent with a reward.
Oh, with, like, a job well done.
Yes. Like you start to crave that feeling, and then boom, Febreze becomes part of your cleaning habit loop.
Wow. Okay, so companies are, like, straight up manipulating my brain's reward system.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I had no idea. But you're saying we can use this to our advantage too, right?
Right.
Okay, so companies are using this stuff against me. But if they can do it,
Right.
shouldn't I be able to use this habit loop thing to my advantage too?
Absolutely.
Right. Like, turn this whole thing around.
You got it.
Okay, so where do I even start? Like, do I just decide, okay, I'm going to have this new routine now and just, like, cross my fingers and hope for the best?
Well, it's a little more nuanced than that.
Okay.
But, remember that golden rule of habit change we talked about?
Okay.
Keep the cue, keep the reward,
Right.
but change the routine. So, like, let's say you want to start, I don't know, running in the mornings.
Okay.
But you keep hitting the snooze button.
You know me too well.
Well, so in that case, like, the cue, that might be your alarm clock going off, right?
Right, right.
And the reward is that, like, feeling of relaxation you get when you hit snooze and you're like, 10 more minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But the routine,
Okay.
we can change that up.
Okay.
What if instead of, like, hitting the snooze button, you, like, put your running shoes right next to your bed
Okay.
and you just, like, immediately go for a quick jog?
So the cue is the same.
Exactly.
And I still get, like, that little hit of good job, like I did something.
Right.
But instead of more sleep, I get a workout in.
There you go.
I like it.
You're basically just finding, like, a new path to that same reward that actually, like, aligns with what you want to be doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. But I think even with this golden rule, I mean, we all know, like, changing habits is hard.
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to, like, stick with these new routines?
You're totally right. It's, it's not always as simple as just, like, swapping out one routine for another. Like,
Right.
he talks a lot about the importance of belief.
Okay.
Like, you have to believe that change is possible, and not just for other people, for you. You
Right.
know what I mean?
So it's more than just, like, knowing the steps. It's
Yeah.
like, I have to have faith that I can actually do it.
Exactly, yeah. And one of, like, the best examples of this is Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
They don't, like, they don't just give you a new routine with the meetings and the sponsors and all that. Like, they give you this whole support system,
Right.
this sense of community, right? Like, you're surrounded by all these other people who understand the struggle and who believe in the possibility of change. And, like, that shared belief,
Right.
that can be so powerful.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly.
Yeah, like having those people in your corner, like, it really does.
Huge difference.
Yeah, it makes such a big
For
difference.
sure.
Okay, so we've got this habit loop. We've got the cravings are important. We've got this golden rule. We need belief.
Yeah.
Anything else we're missing?
One last thing.
Okay.
So, Duhigg, he talks about these things called keystone habits.
Keystone habits.
Yeah, so these are like small changes that once you implement them, they kind of have this like ripple effect,
Okay.
leading to all these other positive changes.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so he gives this example of Paul O'Neill.
Okay.
He was the CEO of Alcoa.
Okay.
And when O'Neill took over, the company wasn't doing so hot.
Okay.
So what did he decide to focus on? Worker safety.
Really?
Yeah. Which, I mean,
Out of everything.
yeah, you would think, like, profits or something, right?
Right, yeah.
But O'Neill, like, he understood that, focusing on worker safety, this would force these other important changes
Right.
in all these other areas.
Hmm.
Because, like, in order to improve safety, people had to communicate better. They had to, like, streamline their processes, pay more attention to detail.
Yeah.
And guess what? Those changes, they didn't just make the workplace safer. It actually boosted morale and it increased profits.
Wow.
So that one keystone habit, focusing on safety,
Yeah.
it led this whole cascade of positive changes.
So you're saying, like, it's not always the big, like, sweeping changes we need to make.
Exactly.
It's like finding that small thing that's actually going to make the big impact.
You got it.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. Okay, so to wrap this up, if we want to change our lives, I guess it starts with our habits, right?
Totally.
You got to figure out, like, okay, what's the cue? What's the routine? What's the reward?
Yeah.
Driving those behaviors. And then how can we find a new routine
Right.
that, like, actually aligns with the goals that we have?
Exactly.
And then, most importantly, like, believing that we can actually do it.
Yeah, that's huge.
Right. Like, that belief is, like, the secret sauce.
It really is.
Okay, wow, this has been incredibly eye-opening.
It really is fascinating stuff.
I think I need to go, like, analyze some of my habits now.
You too.
This is great.
It's a lifelong process, but, understanding, like, how your brain works,
Yeah.
it really does give you the power to, like, make those changes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what are you waiting for out there? Like, start thinking about those habits you want to change. What's that small step?
Yeah. What can you do today?
Exactly, that you can do today to, like, set yourself on that new path.
Right. Come on. You got this.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in to The Consistent 24. If you found value, subscribe and leave a review. Remember to check the synopsis for more free ways to unlock your potential and build profits. The Consistent 24, just listen to learn.